Hello everyone and welcome to today's SANS webcast. Which SANS pen test course should I take? My name is Carol Auth of the SANS Institute and I will be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speakers are Ed Skoudis and Mark Baggett, both are SANS instructors, and Jason Blanchard, SANS Pen Test Curriculum Marketing Manager. If during the webcast you have any questions for our presenters, please enter them into the questions window located on the GoToWebinar interface at any time. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to hand the webcast over to Jason.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. Hey, I want to just introduce Ed and Mark real quick, and the reason for this webcast. And the reason really is because we get the question all the time, which course should I take or which course should I take next? And so I asked Mark and Ed if they'd be willing to do this webcast, and they said yes. Ed Skoudis is the curriculum lead for the pen test curriculum. He wrote the 504 course and the 560 course, and he's been instrumental to all of the development of this. Plus, I work with him on a daily basis to do all the things that I do for the pen test curriculum. Mark Baggett is probably the smartest guy I've ever met. Sorry, Ed. Mark's just he's just incredibly smart. He's witty. He's funny. He was also like an extra on MacGyver, which that right there is just awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen here. They're going to talk about this, and then if I see questions pop up, please ask your questions, and then we will answer them because we want to make sure that you guys get a chance to take the best course for you for your career in our organization. So Ed, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks, Ed.
Hey, it's well said. Thank you, Jason. I really do appreciate it. And I'd like to thank everybody who's here for joining us. The presentation will last less than an hour, and we want to have plenty of time for your questions and answers. If you do have questions, and they can be very, open-ended questions, hey, what SANS class best serves this need or has that aspect to it, or very personal, hey, I'm trying to develop my career in this direction. What do you think I should do? We love that kind of stuff. Type it into the system, and Jason will either interrupt Mark or me, or save him to the end, whatever it is that Jason wants to do. But let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So I personally love attending SANS courses. I do. I actually love to sit in the back. I'll do a couple of days of this course or a couple of days of that course just to kind of see. I get a feel for the instructor, and I learn. Hands-on skills, practical things. I love it. And you know what it is that I love so much about it? It's the SANS promise and how the folks at SANS really try to live this thing. And the SANS promise is this, if you haven't heard about it. You'll be able to apply what you learn at SANS the day you get back to the office. And that's what I'm looking for when I go to SANS courses. I want to see stuff that I can directly apply in making my InfoSec career better. How can I better defend things? How can I better attack things? I really do have fun. I took a course with Tim Medine about a year ago. About a year and a half ago, I took a course with Josh Wright. I've seen Mark Baggett present several times. I haven't had a chance to take his course yet, but I definitely want to, and I'm sure I'm going to want to after this whole session here. But I got to tell you, deciding which courses to take is not a trivial thing. SANS has over 65 courses now. I counted them to get that number here, 65, and then there's hosted sessions where it's actually a course that's outside of SANS stable of courses, but we find it to be a really, really good course, so we offer them at SANS events. An example of a hosted course would be courses on physical security and lockpicking that is done by the core group. They do a fantastic job. So you got 65 courses plus 7 or 8 hosted courses. How do you decide what you want to do? I get asked all the time this question. I'm sure Jason does, Mark Baggett does as well, and we want you to choose the right course. I mean, let's face it, not everybody gets a chance to take a SANS course frequently, right? I mean, there are some people who do come, maybe a couple times a year, but most people get a SANS course opportunity maybe once a year or so, sometimes even less often than that. So you want to choose right. It's a great opportunity to be able to have your employer, or sometimes people pay out of their own pocket, pay for you to take a SANS course, and we want you to get the most out of it. So here's some ideas for choosing the right one for you, okay? First of all, whenever I get an email, somebody says, I need to know what SANS course to take. I respond back saying, well, what's your background and current skill level? Like, what do you do? How did you get to where you are? And then where do you want to go? There might be several steps for you to get there, but where do you want to go? Where do you want to be 2 or 3 or 5 years from now? Think through that carefully. It's important. And then the most important thing is, what does your boss want you to do today and tomorrow and over the next several years? The fact is, if your boss and your company is footing the bill, you need to take their needs into account. Whenever we're working on courses for SANS, we try to adhere to that SANS promise, both for the person sitting in the course seat, but as well as the organization who has paid to have that student there. Again, some people pay for it on their own. That's totally cool. But we're trying to make sure we gear everything to both of those entities, the person in the classroom and their organization, because if they're in sync, it makes the SANS promise even more fulfilling. And in fact, Jason and I talk about this all the time. Jason is from marketing, and he helps us to engage the community. And whenever Jason sends me a new idea or something to help market SANS stuff, I always look at it through this lens of, how does this idea appeal to the person in the classroom, but at the same time, how does it appeal to the boss? And will the boss find this interesting and engaging as well? So think about your background, your skill level. What is it that you want to do? And this can be very broad. I want to get deeper in cyber defense. I want to get deeper in digital forensics. I want to get deeper in my understanding of the offense, maybe because you want to do penetration testing or something like that. And then you need to think about what skills are needed to achieve the goals of you and the goals of your boss. Again, SANS instructors are here to help you do this. If you email me, I get about, 6, 7 emails a week asking these kinds of questions. What course do I take? And then I send back some banter. The other thing you got to think about is how important is certification. In some organizations, certification is really important. I remember when SANS first came up with this idea of having certifications, and then the GIAC organization is the organization that delivers those certifications. It was back in like 1999, 2000. I've been with SANS 18 years now. Anyway, when the idea first came up, it was based on this notion. Your boss is spending this money to send you to SANS, and she or he wants to know that you've gotten some skills when you come back. How can they know that? Is there a measure? Is there a test? And that's why the certifications were created. So for some people, this is important because this is how you show your boss that you've developed some skills. For other organizations, certification is less important. You need to decide in your organization and your career what is most meaningful for you. So think through those things, and then I'm going to show you in just a minute a brand new thing that SANS has got. Put it together over the last year, actually. Been working on it for a year, and it just kind of rolled out over the last couple of months. I think you're going to really like it because based on your answer to these questions that I've got on this slide here, it will help guide you to a SANS course. Now, here's the deal. Suppose you do everything I'm about to say, and you take a SANS course, and you land in that course, and you find out this isn't right. It's too hard for me. I don't have the skill necessary to do it. Or maybe the opposite. This is too easy for me. I'm more advanced in this material. That's okay. You can fix it. If you find that you've chosen the wrong course, SANS is very open to moving you to another course at the same event so that you can get what it is that you need to help advance your career. So let's say, for example, you've set up for a course A, whatever it is, and you go through a half a day's of material or maybe a full day's of material, and you decide, this isn't quite right for me. We'll move you to course B. No problem. We'll help you choose course B so that we make sure you get that experience that you deserve from your SANS experience. I do think it's best to make any transition on day 1 or day 2, because if you try to jump between courses on day 3 or day 4, it gets hard to get into that flow with the new instructor. But realize that even if you choose wrong, you can fix it, right? So no pressure, just be thoughtful and be careful. So here you can see this me teaching SANS Security 560. Of course, I love it's on network penetration testing and ethical hacking. And if I go back to the previous slide, you'll see there was me in the same shirt. Believe it or not, I do own multiple shirts, but those pictures just happen to come out back to back. So there you go. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. The new SANS course roadmap. This is a cool thing. A lot of people work really hard on this. And it's all animated and fancy-like. If you want, you just go to the simple URL, HTTPS. Notice we got the TLS action going there, //www.sans.org/roadmap. You go there, and it's all interactive. You click on the different things. I'll show you what to click on so you can explore it and such. If you prefer static, boring PDFs, you can go to the URL I show you in the lower right. Also, SANS has these printed. If you come to SANS, they'll hand you one. That one you can't click on, though. It's paper. But still, you got your interactive one at the top. That's the one I recommend you look at because it's got some neat features where you can hover and this and that kind of stuff, or get a static PDF at the URL I show you. The basic flow is from the left to the right here, right? So you flow across the page. You've got your baseline skills. You've got to focus on job roles. The idea is how do we take these 65 courses and present them to you in a digestible, understandable fashion based on what it is that you want to learn. And then you've got specialized roles, these crucial skills. So you could start with the baseline skills. And in there we have courses like SANS Security 401, which is Security Essentials. It's the Cyber Defense Essentials. And we've got SANS Security 504 right underneath it. This is Incident Response and Hacker Attacks. This is the foundations of what the bad guys do so you can better defend it. So these are two of SANS best-selling courses, and they're right there to start things off. Now, some of you have probably already taken those courses. If you have, you can maybe jump to your focus on specific job roles. Notice SANS also has courses on security management. You see that in the green at the bottom. Also, software development, secure coding, that's in orange on the right-hand side. Also, industrial control systems, ICS as they call it, SCADA and related technologies, that's over here on the right. But the core flow is starting on these baseline skills, which has 401 and 504, and then you jump to your focus job roles. And then you'll see we've got a blue track for cyber defense, a red track for offensive stuff, that's penetration testing, and then there's this sort of dark gray or black track, which is on incident response and digital forensics. If you click on the course number, boom, it takes you right to a detailed course description. Sweet. Next slide. So the training roadmap, if you go and you hover over one of these areas, these sections, it shows you, okay, so penetration testing and advanced penetration testing, what's that all about? And it describes to you what's in that section, and if you click the plus, it expands it into the individual courses in that area. And if you click on any one of those courses, you get the details of that course, right? So you could say, well, look, I have got my foundations down. That's great. You've taken maybe 504. And I want to move to the next level. So then you can go over to the penetration testing if you want to focus on that. Click on the plus, boom. You'll see the foundational specific courses for penetration testing. Go to advanced penetration testing because maybe you've taken some of those. Click plus, boom, you got it. So if you expand the penetration testing, vulnerability analysis, and ethical hacking section, you see you've got SANS Security 560 and SANS Security 542, network pen testing and web app pen testing. Really cool stuff. If you hover over each one of these, you'll get a description of the course. Click on it, and you get all the details of the course, everything you need to know. All right, and then if you click on the plus, over on the advanced penetration testing side, you'll see a whole bunch of other courses. So you'll see we've got there, for example, if you're really into the network penetration testing, we've got the SANS Security 560, we've got SANS Security 660, that's advanced penetration testing, and SANS Security 760. This is advanced exploit development. It is SANS' most advanced course. It's amazing. They get really deep into a whole bunch of things like the Windows kernel and how to exploit that, the Linux heap and how to do Linux heap exploits, and a whole bunch more. Great stuff. If you're more focused on the web app side of things, you could take SANS Security 542, which is all about web app pen testing, or move into the advanced web app pen testing, which gets into a lot of the AJAX attacks, and they just updated the course significantly. They've added to it some stuff about HTTP2. They've also added a lot about WebSockets, and increasingly I'm seeing WebSockets in a lot of the penetration testing that I'm dealing with. Also a lot of the products and such that my team at CounterHack is building, we're relying heavily on WebSockets. It's important stuff. Then on the mobile and wireless side of things, we've got SANS Security 575. This is how you could do analysis and assessment of mobile devices, the applications, and their associated infrastructures. So things like analyzing an app that runs on an Android device or iPhone or something like that, or analyzing the wireless that underpins that. If you want to focus on wireless itself, though, we've got a phenomenal course, SANS Security 617. Larry Pesci and Josh Wright just updated this, and it's massive and it's amazing. It's over 50% new material. They cover the foundations of building a secure wireless infrastructure using WPA2 and such. But they also have some fantastic stuff about near-field communication, Bluetooth low energy, RFID. All this stuff is in this amazing hardware kit when you take the class. It's awesome. And then we have some other courses that focus on some range activities. Like these courses are 561 and 562 are 80% hands-on. So if you just want to take your pen test skills to the next level with a bunch of hands-on labs and a coach that is the instructor that helps you build them, got 561 and 562. But the real star of our show today is going to be SANS Security 573. This is a neat course. Mark Baggett spent a whole bunch of time last year rebuilding this course and adding so much cool new stuff to it that I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But you can see we've got this wonderful SANS Security 573, Automating Information Security with Python, and we've got the description of what the course is all about here. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Mark has done in the last year. It's been a lot of stuff in 12 months. The course had been a 5-day course for several years, and I pushed Mark, I begged Mark, I pleaded with Mark, please, please, please make it a 6-day course. Finally, I somehow was able to trick him into doing so, and he moved it to a 6-day course, so there's more material. But it wasn't just that. He also worked with the folks over at GIAC, and they spent a lot of time and effort to come up with a certification for this. It's called GPYC. So you can get certified as an information security professional who is proficient in Python for customizing and creating your own tools and automating InfoSec. That's the whole thing here. The focus is on automation. So automating InfoSec tasks, not just pen testing, but defense, forensics, and pen testing. This is good for you and good for your boss. It's good for you because these are great skills to have, and people can use them all the time. I mean, I spend a lot of my own time writing things in Python. Last night, I spent a bunch of time in Python, and pretty much every weekend, I'm writing some new stuff in Python because it's just so flexible and useful. It's also good for your boss because if you can automate more, you can get more done in less time. It's really good, and you'll see the new course name reflects this. Automating information security, very, very important stuff. And I'm here to tell you, look, it seems to be being well accepted in the marketplace because it was the 4th best-selling course at SANS Orlando in April of 2017. So that was, what, 4 months ago? It was the 4th best-selling course. So you got the 3 above it. They did great. This one also did fantastic. It says the 3rd. It should say the 3rd. Look at that. It was the 3rd best-selling course at SANS Fire in July. Which is awesome. 3rd best-selling course. Think about that. And it's selling really well at SANS Network Security. That's the one that's in Vegas in September. I just looked at it yesterday. It was the 4th best-selling course currently. Of course, that event, Network Security in Las Vegas, is going to be happening in about 3 weeks. So the course is actually selling like hotcakes. Mark Baggett has done a fantastic job with it. And I'd like to turn things over to Mark now so he can tell you more about this class. Do we have any questions, Jason, that we should go through now, or just hand it over to Mark?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you, and it might be addressed for everyone. It says, it's from Alan Ma. I work on a blue team, but I really like penetration testing after going to Core Net Wars. Do you think GPen will be the best course for me, or should I go GCIH and align more with the blue team skills?
I missed a little bit of that. Do you think what would be the best for me?
Do you think GPen would be better for me, or GCIH?
That's a great question. What I would suggest is you need to analyze yourself. And do you want to learn more about the incident handling side, which can be very useful for blue? Or do you want to learn more of the deeper offensive stuff? You've got that choice. It's a branch. I mean, if you really want to adhere to the cyber defense and be blue through and through, probably GCIH, that is associated with the SANS 504 course, is the better path for you. But if you want to get deeper into the offense, GPen, which is the 560 course, would be the path to go. So do you want to do incident handling, or do you want to get more on the offensive pen test side? And based on that, I don't think you've got a bad answer on either of those directions. Thank you, Jason and Alan. Anything else before we turn it over to Mark?
That's it. Let's go to Mark.
All right, Dr. Baggett, take it away. Do you need to take over the slides or something, or are you going to tell me when to advance them?
If you don't mind, just hitting advancing the slide when I ask, that'll be fine.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you very much, Ed. Yeah, Ed may have understated just slightly the suggestion to go to 6 days from 5, but it was such a tremendous help to the class when we added that 6th day. We were able to add a whole lot of new material to the course, as well as completely refocus the course from being strictly a penetration testing class to being a class that is focused on the automation of the types of skills that we use every single day as information security professionals And we do it in various themes. So we'll present the material and we'll work on a project that is focused on something a forensics analyst would need to do, or something that a blue teamer would need to do, or something that a pen tester would need to do. And so that is the new course, the Automating Information Security, and we'll show you a little bit about the course and then we'll put some use to it. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So who should take 573? Well, it's anyone that doesn't have the luxury of waiting on someone else to implement their ideas. You know, if you're a forensics analyst and you come across some artifact that is going to make or break your case, and there isn't a tool that knows how to open up the database associated with this particular mobile application that the suspect was using, or if you are a defender and you've got some tactics, techniques, and procedures that you've identified for the attacker, and you just need some tool that will take these custom TTPs that you've developed and go out and find the evil in all of your logs and all of your packets and apply some analysis, some intelligent analysis to those logs and packets and generate a report for you, you can write a tool to do that. If you're a penetration tester and you need to have that foothold inside of a target environment and you need antivirus software not to be detecting and killing your processes on those remote hosts, then using someone else's tool is probably not the best bet. You know, that's the best way to get your backdoors caught by antivirus software is to just use an off-the-shelf backdoor for your initial foothold into an organization. So if you have a need for tools like that, then you have one or two choices. You can either wait for somebody else to write your tool, or you can write it on your own. And if you have the skills to write these things, then you are empowered to move your organization forward. So next slide, please. The way this class is broken down is it's broken down in the first 2 days are the essentials workshop. So I will assume that you have absolutely no knowledge of programming coming into the course, and we'll drop you into an essentials workshop for the first 2 days. Next slide. Now, if you're coming into a 2-day workshop, you may need that material, you may not. So if we look at who attends these classes, the student experience for the people, or the level of experience that students have coming into the class is one of the biggest challenges that we face in developing a programming class. So when I look at the people that attend 573 today, I would say about 40% of the people that come into the class have some knowledge of programming from some other language. Then there's another 20% who come into the class that actually know Python. They knew Python when they came to the class and they wanted to see how they could take their Python skills and apply them in different scenarios in information security, either apply them as forensics analysts, as blue teamers, or as pen testers. But there's this whole other 40% of students that typically come to the class that are non-programmers. They have never written a line of code before in their lives. They don't know bash, they don't know what a variable is, and so I have to present the material in a way that meets all their needs. So that's a significant challenge. If I sit there and I cover the essentials for 2 days and you already know Python when you come into the class, then by the end of the second day, you will be ready to wring my neck. If you already know how to do coding in some other language, then you're going to very quickly adapt those skills and not need to spend a lot of time going through that material. But of course, if you're brand new to coding, then you need every bit of those 2 days to pick up that material, because learning a new language is a difficult skill for someone who's never done that before. You know, when you take that problem and you add to it the problem that's probably best illustrated by Frederick Brooks' book, The Mythical Man Month, he analyzed the work that was completed by professional programmers. So people that code for a living, whose job it is to write programs. They feed their family because they write programs, when he analyzed the way that these people worked, he found that most programmers developed on average about 10 lines of code a day. And the reason for that is, and if you've ever written a code, some programming before, this will resonate with you, I'm sure. You spend a day or two writing the program, and then after you've written the program, you know how you should have written the program. So you throw the entire thing away and you start back over and you rewrite the program from scratch. And then after you've rewritten the program, you give it to QA department who does all of their checks. They give you back your code and tell you to go add these new features or take these features away. You have peer code reviews and so forth and so on. And so the average professional programmer makes about 10 lines of code a day. And that would be a significant challenge for any programming class where we need you to write more than 10 lines of code a day. And the last problem that you have with programming classes is that you need to learn, the best way to learn is with hands-on, keyboard time. You need to spend time writing code and not looking at slides. And so one of the things that we've done with 573 is designed it so that you have a lot of keyboard time. And you can, if you come into this class and you're already a developer, you can spend upwards of 80 to 90% of your time on the keyboard coding while you're in the class. So next slide, please. The way that we've solved that is with PyWars. PyWars is an online lab environment. It's a self-paced lab environment that runs for the first 5 days of the class. And what happens is you come into the class and I give you all of the labs up front. I say, here's all the labs that we're going to be completing throughout the week. I show you how to operate in the PyWars lab environment. And then from that point forward, you can choose to work through the labs at your own pace or listen to lecture. I'll be lecturing from that point forward, covering all of the essentials of the language for the first 2 days. Then after the next 2 days, we jump into the practical application of those things in information security. And students will tune in and tune out of my lecture and work through the lab environment at their own pace. So the way this normally works is someone who already knows how to code when they come into the class immediately jumps into PyWars and essentially ignores me for the first 2 days of class, working through as many labs as they possibly can, and then spends more time listening when we get to the practical application of that. Perhaps they are laser focused on the defensive side or the forensic side and really don't care about the offensive side or some other particular aspects of it. They'll work through the PyWars labs during the sections that they're less focused on. Or perhaps they already know how to do regular expressions and use regular expressions to pull IP addresses and host names out of log files so that they can do analysis with those. They'll spend more time in the lab environment while I'm covering those sections. Now the labs are laid out in difficulty and they go through, they cover all of the material that we cover in the first 5 days, but they go well beyond that. In the class we only talk about the first 45 PyWars challenges are covered in the class material. There's, I think we're at 80 PyWars challenges now, and I'm adding PyWars challenges all the time. So my commitment to the students is when they come into there, I want to be able to tell the students that no one has ever finished all the PyWars challenges. And if someone does finish the PyWars challenges, then I move on. I add more PyWars challenges so that I can stand up there and say, hey, there's more labs than you can possibly complete in a week of time. So every once in a while we'll have someone fix it or complete all the labs and we'll move on. I'll add more labs, but there are a lot of labs for people to work through. Okay. So next slide, please, Ed. So after the essentials, we got days 3 through 5 of the course material where we focus on applying those skills to things that you need, that you can do when you get back to work, fulfilling that SANS promise. Next slide. Now, throughout the material, we're still talking about how to develop code. We're introducing new concepts on programming, but we do it with various themes. For example, day 3 is our defensive day where we talk about how to read and write to the file system. And once we know how to read and write from the file system, then we apply some log analysis techniques. We'll talk about regular expressions and how to extract packets from them. We'll talk about how to read packets and reassemble packets, extract payloads from packets, and find evil. On day 3, you'll basically write a small intrusion detection system by the end of day 3. Day 4, we're still focused on building applications, and all of the skills that we talk about in each and every day are things that can apply to you whether you're in forensics or offense or defense. Certainly, if you're in offense, then reading and writing to the file system is a useful skill. Certainly, if you are in defense, then knowing how to communicate with devices on the network is a useful skill. Whether if you're in forensics, then knowing how regular expressions can pull information out of a database is a useful skill. So all of these skills that we talk about in each day are still applied to everyone regardless of the discipline that they're in, but we have these themes that we will build applications that have different themes. So on our forensics day, we'll do some file carving and we'll pull information out of databases. We will parse binary structures and teach you how to build tools that can analyze forensics artifacts for which there currently is no forensics tool that understands how to parse that. On our offensive day, we talk about network I/O and exception handling. We talk about Python objects. And finally, we talk about how to build backdoors. So building backdoors that antivirus software isn't going to detect. Okay, and next slide.
Mark, I got to tell you, I really love the way you organize this. I mean, you're picking up skills that can be used across any of those job titles, but by having a focus of that on each day, it helps to pin it down. I think it's brilliant. Really well done.
Hey, Mark, I got a quick question here for you from Christopher Linton.
Mm-hmm.
How long does a student have access to PyWars challenges for?
Well, if you come to the class, then the PyWars server is set up on day one, and we usually get into the lab environment by 10:30 a.m. So, and then it will run for the entire first 5 days of class. So you'll have access the entire time you're in class. We also usually try to get to class a little bit early and set things up and stay a little bit late. So for the first 5 days of class, you'll have access to the lab, and people work through the lab environment that entire time. Now, I also give students in their virtual machines a copy of an offline PyWars server. And the offline PyWars server has all of the same questions that we cover in the course material. So when you leave the course and you go home, you'll have a virtual machine that has a PyWars server in it with all of the same questions and the answers that you do in the class, so you can actually do those at any time. That's a good question. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Also, I think, you know, via on-demand, they're going to have access throughout the entire duration of the on-demand course and beyond, right, Mark?
That's correct. If you have on-demand, then that's whatever the duration of on-demand is. I think it's 4 months, and the PyWars server is set up in that lab environment. There is a slight difference between the PyWars server that I have in the classroom and the PyWars server that you have in your virtual machine that you take home with you, and that is that really there's 45 PyWars challenges that make up the course, right? There's 45 PyWars challenges that we cover in the 5 days that make up the first 5 days of the class. And you take all 45 of those home with you. What you don't have in the offline PyWars server is all of the extra labs that I put in there in case someone finishes all the labs that are part of the course and begins moving on to the bonus material that's in that PyWars server. Now, of course, if you have access to on-demand, then you will have access to the bonus material for that prolonged period of time. That's one of the questions I often get is, what about access to the additional lab questions? Those aren't really part of the course. Those are there. It's never the answers are never discussed in class. The material isn't described in class. It's just presented to the students so that they have additional material for them to work through if they're an advanced user and working through those materials. And if you get access to on-demand, then you'll have 4 months of access to be able to work through even those advanced materials. And one of the things I'm working on now is recording the answers for working through all of those additional pieces of material for on-demand.
But one thing, Mark, is that class isn't available yet, right?
That class is not available yet. It should be available soon. I am recording PyWars Challenge 64 of 79 or 80 challenges now. So I should be finished recording those by the end of the week, and hopefully SANS will have them ready for students by the end of the quarter.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark.
Yep. Then after our 5 days of course material, we get to day 6 where we jump into our capstone. Capstone is, you can't be part of the pen test curriculum and not have a capstone workshop. So we break down into teams, and as teams we solve various problems. There'll be some forensics challenges, there'll be defensive challenges, there'll be pen test challenges. One of the nice things about this is because we've got a PyWars server that's been collecting scores and watching how people have been doing throughout the week, the PyWars server can form perfect teams that are perfectly even, where we have offensive people, defensive people, and forensics people on each of the teams distributed out there. So it's always fun when we get into the capstone workshop, and many times it has come down to the last few seconds to determine who the winner of our capstone is. Next slide. And that really talks about what I wanted to tell you about the course. So as you're thinking about 573, it is a course that is available to people in all disciplines. We're going to, whether you're blue team, red team, or that gray blackish box that we have on our course roadmap, you're going to find that there's skills being taught that are applicable to you when you get back to work. Now, Ed told me when we were putting together this webcast that we had to fulfill the SANS promise in this webcast itself, that we had to provide some technical skills and technical know-how for you to leave here with when you were done with the webcast. And I kind of struggled with this because really this class, I've got 2 days of workshop before we even get into how to start building Python apps. So really, what can I teach you in 5-10 minutes that's going to be, that's really going to reflect what we do in the class and still give you some skills that you can leave? And it is a difficult challenge. So what I have here is I wanted to show you a couple of things. And Ed, would it be all right if well, actually, let's go to the next slide, and then we'll come back to this one. I'll do this slide in a demo form. I'll just have you share my screen with you and do this in a demo form. So back in the day, we used to have these VT100s, these terminal machines that were sitting on all of our desks, and these things talked to a mainframe. And they look like dumb little terminals, but actually they were pretty smart. They had a little CPU in there, they had buffers, they processed the characters locally so that when you hit your print screen button on these little VT terminals, that actually just sent a request off to the mainframe, and then the mainframe would send a set of escape characters back to the VT100, which would cause it to send output to the printer instead of to the screen. These little machines were more than just dumb keyboards and screens. They actually had some processing capabilities in there. And when these screens went away and they were replaced with things like PuTTY and Telnet and SSH clients, the capabilities that were in these little terminals had to be added to those programs. So they had to do things like intercept when we hit Control-C in our PuTTY terminal. And instead of killing PuTTY, right, it needed to send that Control-C across the network and tell the device on the other side, hey, it's time for you to kill that particular program. When we try to enter a password, we had to send commands, have the mainframe send us commands that would turn off the echo inside of our little terminal emulators so that the keys that we were typing as we were entering our password wouldn't be displayed on the screen where people behind us could see them. And all this intelligence had to be added to our machines. And that was added in the form of TTYs, or pseudo-terminal emulators that have been added to the Linux operating system. And with that, could you share my screen? Back to you.
Carol, thank you.
Okay. All right, can you see my screen okay?
I can.
Okay, I'm going to assume if Ed can see it, then that's good with me. All right, So what happens is, and you've probably seen this before, if I have a netcat session going, right? If I start up a netcat listener listening on a port and I do bin bash, I'm just going to run a shell, then I connect to it with netcat. Then certain commands like ls and id, they work just fine. But there are other commands, like if I try and do a control L to clear the screen, that doesn't do anything for me. If I do a sudo su minus, then that puts the prompt up on the remote system. It doesn't pass that prompt back to me. Let's kill this netcat session here and restart it. If I do things like in my netcat session, I was to type top. Okay, top isn't running. I'm not seeing any of the output over here on top, and actually if I look over here, I just see failed to get TTY. So there's certain commands that just don't work inside of netcat because what I've got here is a raw connection to the system that doesn't have that TTY, that functionality that was provided by my VT100s back in the day. I don't have that interface available to me. Well, within Python, and you probably have seen something like this before, what we can do is we can connect to the we can connect to that netcat session, and then we can use Python to instantiate a VTY interface on this connection. So what I can do is I can say Python -c. The -c is a command line argument that when passed to Python says, all right, I want you to run a script. And then I'm going to provide you the entire contents of that script in the form of a string in this next argument. So everything that's inside the quotes after the C is a script that we're going to run. Inside this script, I'm going to run the line import PTY, which is a module that allows us to instantiate a PTY. And then I'm going to run pty.spawn, and I want to execute the command /bin/bash. So what this is going to do is it's going to launch a new bash prompt, and this bash prompt is going to be inside of a PTY terminal. And here you can see I get back my prompt. Now, this isn't the prompt I had here. If you look over here, my netcat window is still running. I'm actually in a new netcat session where I get the prompt, and if I do things like sudo su minus, I get back my prompt over here. I can type student, and now I'm running as root. And everything just works perfectly for me here in this new terminal interface. I can run top, and it works just fine. I can hit Control-C on a long list of commands. So Control-L works just fine. ls-lar, give it a long string. I hit Control-C. It doesn't kill my netcat window. And actually, that must have killed my netcat window at some point in there. It doesn't kill your netcat window when you do a Control-C once you've got that Python terminal running. Okay, so this seems to be a great fix for these raw sockets. And this isn't just with netcat window. This is with any type of exploit where you get a socket back from an exploit that's giving you a raw shell. This is a great solution, but just like with any great solutions, it's important to read the fine print and understand when this works and when it doesn't work. Now, if you have a Linux client, so if I'm using a Linux client and on this, so my netcat client is running on a Linux machine, then everything is good. When I run my Python command, I will get my TTY, and I'll be able to kill the programs remotely, and everything it'll just work for me. But if this remote system here, if my remote connection is a Windows machine, then things don't work quite as well. So here I'm going to have my netcat listener listening on port 9000. Let's come over to a Windows machine, and here on a Windows machine, I'm going to use netcat to connect to that same IP address. Okay. And now I can type ID, I can type ls. You can see that my window here, I am connected to that remote system and able to interface with it. Now, if I tried to do a sudo, the same thing would happen. That prompt would come up on the remote system and would not display on my Windows system. So I might, on my Windows system, like to do this. I might say Python -c import pty semicolon pty.spawn bin bash. Oops, it is important that you use single quotes here inside of your quote bin /bash close parentheses close quote. And notice I get my 573 prompt, but something is amiss here. This doesn't look quite right. I'm seeing both sides of this terminal. I'm seeing the echo of the commands coming back plus the things that are, there's two sides of a TTY. There's a master and a slave, and I'm seeing both of them here. So certain commands will work. So I can type ls, and ls I see fonts and things like that appearing, but I can type sudo su minus, my prompt appears here, and I can type student, so I can get my root prompt, and certain things work, but many things don't. For example, if I hit Control-C inside the Windows netcat, it still brings me back to netcat, so it doesn't capture Control-C like it does on the Linux system. And depending upon the netcat client that you're using on your Windows system, I've seen various things work and various things not work. There is a very bad situation. I think it may have been a PowerShell implementation of netcat that behaved this way, or it may have been NCAT. I'm not sure which particular implementation of netcat it was, but I was on a Windows system and I wanted to capture this reverse shell from a Linux system. So rather than firing up a Linux host to capture my shell, and we can bring it back to the slides now, rather than firing up my Linux system to capture the shell, I decided I would go ahead and use the Windows system that I had in front of me actually don't bring up the slides again. Let me show one more thing here. I would use the Windows system I had in front of me to capture that shell. So I brought the shell in, and then I ran my Python -c, and everything seemed to be working. And when I hit Control-C on my Windows system, it killed my netcat, just like it did in this case. But something really bad happened, and that was it did not kill the netcat server. So in certain situations, if you are going to use a Windows system as your netcat client connecting or receiving that remote shell, you may not want to use that PTY process. Or if you do, there's something that you'll want to do to make sure that it exits properly, and that's this. So I'm going to start my netcat listener back up. I'm going to come back over here to my Windows system. I'm going to netcat back in, and then ID, I am connected. I'm going to type Python -c import pty, pty.spawn, open parentheses, quote, bin bash, close quote, close parentheses. Got one too many parentheses there. Start my shell back up. ID. All right, Python -c import pty semicolon pty on open parentheses bin bash close quote. All right, I get my shell back. So now I can do things within this interactive shell. When I type exit here, this is going to drop me back out of that PTY, and I'm still in my netcat window. So if you're going to use Windows as netcat to interface with that remote shell, and you run this import PTY, the last thing that you'll want to do is type exit, which will drop you back into your netcat connection that is not inside a TTY. And then when you're here, then you can hit Control-C and gracefully exit, and that will make sure that the netcat server on the remote side disconnects. So there's a quick little tip that you can do. Let me just show you a couple of other things that we tend to do. Yes.
Mark, I wanted to move into Q&A in the last final slides, just so that we have some people who have some questions and make sure that they can start asking their questions if they have any in the window. You can start populating those so we can get those ready. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and type them in now, and then we'll answer them as they come up. So Ed, could we move into the last final slide or so, just so that we have enough time to answer questions? And
sure. If Carol can give me the thing again, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark, for a live demo. That's always terrifying and awesome all at the same time.
Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, there we go. So Mark's got, in the slides, he's illustrated just wonderfully the stuff that he was showing you, which is great. Thank you, Mark, for that. So, and then we get to the very bottom line of this, choosing the right SANS course for you. If you still can't decide what course is best for you, ask for help. There are numerous GIAC and SANS mailing lists. We have one that is associated with the SANS pen testing classes, and anyone can join. We call it the GPON list. I know this is a long URL, but maybe Jason will type it in so that everybody can get it easily. https://list.sans.org. You can subscribe to it whether you've taken a SANS pen test course or not. And you'll see we keep our topic pretty focused on various aspects of offense. It's a great list. I'm so thankful for all the wonderful members that we have that contribute to that list. Please do join us on that. And you can ask about what SANS course to take there, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. Or you can contact your friendly neighborhood SANS instructor or curriculum lead. We're happy to help you out. The bottom line here is we want your SANS experience to be excellent. I'd like to thank you for your time here. So we're going to open it up for questions and answers. But there's one more thing I got to mention to you. We do this special event called the SANS Hackfest, and it happens every November. It's in the Washington, D.C. area, and we throw everything we've got into this one event. We run a bunch of SANS pen test classes. We do 2 days before the classes of cutting-edge topics from some of the best speakers in the industry. We do special evening field trips. We do 3 nights of Net Wars. This is cool. Normal SANS events, the bigger events, have 2 nights of Net Wars. We give you a bonus night, extra night of Net Wars. You have the opportunity to earn additional SANS pen test coins in Net Wars. So you get these coins if you win the Capture the Flags in the courses. Well, here you get an opportunity to earn coins for courses that you've already taken in the past or are currently taking. We call it Coinapalooza. We run Cyber City, which is our cyber war simulator, and you have to protect the city against terrorists in one of our evening sessions. All this stuff is there. My wife even bakes cookies for everyone and brings them. I really hope you'll check it out. Please, please, please. It's Summit is November 13th and 14th. The training itself happens the 15th through the 20th. It's before Thanksgiving. You go to sans.org/hackfest, and you're going to love it. So, Jason, you want me to hand it back to you, or should we go back to Mark? How do you like to do this?
I got a question for either one of you that would want to answer. It says someone who's starting their career in information security, they're trying to figure out which path to go down.
Yep.
And so they have a good understanding of networking and basic idea of web technologies.
Very
you
good.
think they should go down a monitoring and detection path or a pen test training path. So which one would you consider, Ed?
I think either one is a very good path. I think ultimately you have to identify where do you want your career to be in 2 or 3 or 5 years. Would you like to be an analyst working at a SOC? That's a great job. There's tons of jobs out there for that. I would go down the monitoring and detection path. And there's great courses that can get you there, like SANS Security 503. That's focused on detailed packet analysis, or SANS Security 511, 511. That's on continuous monitoring. But if in 2 or 3 or 5 years you want to have more of an offensive bent, maybe more on incident handling or actually doing penetration tests, I would consider 504, which is on incident handling and hacker attacks, or 560, which is on network penetration testing. 2 completely different paths, and I would make the decision based on where you want to be in 2 to 5 years.
All right, Ed, here's a question, and I'm going to lead you a little bit because I think we have something that someone could use, today if they wanted to. Yep. Is there something that I can do now to help build up my skills? Oh, the hack challenge.
Yes, I've got 2 things for you to build your skills. First thing is Somebody told me about the Holiday Hack Challenge. Every year for over 15 years, my team spends over 1,000 hours building for you a hacking challenge. We release it right before the holidays. It's got a holiday theme in it. Last year, somebody abducted Santa Claus, and you had to find out where Santa Claus was by hacking into all these different systems. The year before, somebody was trying to steal all the Christmas presents, and you had to figure out who it was and thwart their plans because they were using the Internet of Things to try to get into people's houses. This year, it's going to be an epic battle to save the North Pole from destruction. The North Pole gave us a really behind-the-scenes view of everything that's going on there. And anyway, it's holidayhackchallenge.com. We keep all the old ones up. So you can play last year's or the year before, or you want to see what I was writing 10 years ago, you can go there. It's holidayhackchallenge.com. Check them out. You can see all the past challenges are there. You just click over on the right-hand side. Other thing, you want to get your skills up to speed, you need to build yourself a good lab. And it just so happens that Jeff McJunkin is going to be doing a webcast. Is it tomorrow, Jason?
Is tomorrow at exactly the same time. So it's tomorrow.
Jeff McJunkin's going to do a great presentation on how to build yourself a super duper home lab so you can practice. So check out Holiday Hack Challenge. It's free for everyone. I pay a lot of money to keep it online for everybody, but you guys, you get it for free, and I hope you enjoy it. Please do use it. They're all up. And then go to Jeff McJunkin's talk tomorrow because it's really, really useful.
Awesome. Ed, and I think the last question will be, how can I determine if I'm advanced or if I should take a introductory course?
What I would do is I would look at the course syllabus because it tells you, hey, you're going to learn here. For example, let me tell you about SANS Security 542. You're going to get in there and you're going to learn about cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and you're going to learn how to leverage those kinds of attacks. And you might say, well, I already know that. I want to learn about, HTTP2. I want to learn about WebSockets. I want to learn about AJAX and how it can be used in pen testing. Well, then you'd go to 642. I think the easiest way for you to figure out where you are, because we carefully structure these courses so that somebody who's brand new to information security should probably go through 504, SANS Security 504. But if you've got, 3 or 5 years experience, you might want to go to that middle section. Remember that when I first went through it at the start of the talk, there was the section 1, 504 and 401. Section 2 was, like 560 and 542 if you're maybe 3 to 5 years into your career. Or if you've been doing this a while, 5+ years, you might want to jump into section 3. Look at the syllabuses. They can help steer you. And if it's still not clear, email me. I'm ed@counterhack.com. I'd be happy to help you.
All right, Ed and Mark, any final words as we wrap up today?
Mark, you want to close it up with some thoughts on Python and pen testing?
Yeah. So if you're trying to choose a course, there are lots of opportunities for you out there. I have been in a unique position for the last several years to get to see just about every class that SANS offers and sit through a large portion of all those classes. And you really can't make a bad decision. There are so many options out there. Well, the one thing you would want to do is make sure that you're choosing a class that is appropriate for the skill level you have. Everyone tends to overestimate their own abilities. I would say look at the prerequisites and measure yourself against those prerequisites. See if you do have those skills, then move yourself through the classes. But there are lots of opportunities. The ICS track is full of great courses. The defensive track is great courses. I love many of the forensics courses, but of course, home is the penetration testing track, where there are so many great and interesting topics. Because really, when you understand when you get the attacker's mindset, you're so much better at doing both defense and forensics.
That's well said, Mark. Thank you so much. Also, please do check out this Hackfest thing, sans.org/Hackfest, and Holiday Hack Challenge, our holiday gift to everyone coming up. It'll be the second week of December. The new one launches, but you can do the old ones now or anytime for practice. It's online cyber range dressed up in holiday fare for you.
It is quite amazing. It is.
Thank you. You're kind. Very kind.
All right. Carol, I'll turn it over to you to end today's, and thank you everyone for attending.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed, Mark, and Jason, for your great presentation, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, please visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.